concerned. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. Your voice in the community taught that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized. And when you're getting on the show, you take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Also, you can follow our live video stream of this program on our YouTube channel on Vaughan Radio and our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. This is our first edition of 2024, and so I think with that in mind, I want to wish everybody all the very best from this platform for the new year. Tonight, Conrad Nyalibert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio. And I would like to say Happy New Year to you guys. I just want to say thank you for having me back again in the new year. I want to say Happy New Year to the listeners of this program that has been with us throughout last year, and those who have decided to be a part of the audience this year. I say welcome to this very informative and educational program. Webbo, it is my pleasure to be here once again discussing these issues that affects the people. I think it's a new year, but most of the fundamental issues affecting the people continues on the international front and locally. I think Webbo, the politics of the islands of St. Kitts Nevis still remain quite exciting and upfront in the face of the people, which I think always is a good thing. I would encourage people to participate more and to have more conversation and to be more a player in the destiny of these little two beautiful islands. I would like to say a pleasant good evening to my colleague, Mr. Stanley, and I would like to wish you also a Happy New Year. Webbo, I look forward to tonight's discussion, and I hope when we leave here we can add some clarity to issues affecting the people. Sometimes the people enlightened us, and I am always open to that, and that's why I always encourage people to call in. The many people that always want to talk about this program to me on the street. Let's have a different approach this year, and let's break that unwritten rule that if you call in, you would be singled out because everyone knows your voice. Let's get above that and at least have more participation. And maybe if we have that attitude, then the whole concept of victimization will be minimized, and that, I suppose, it's an issue that we got to speak more towards. Webbo, thank you for having me once again, and I look forward to hearty participation in the conversation this evening.
Edric W. Stanley.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly people of Nevis, those who listen to us via Facebook, YouTube, as the case might be, and throughout the world indeed. Well, I must say that I'm so saddened that Christmas is over. I enjoy Christmas so much that when it reaches to the end, I just got this emotional sadness simply because time, festivities, and everything seems to have come to an abrupt end. However, life goes on, and hence I must go on too emotionally. Webbo, we of course reach at another milestone this year, and we're in our 36th year of the Let's Talk program on Vaughan Radio. And therefore, you must be congratulated as a host for having stemmed the tide over this long period of time regarding this program. At the same time, I was elated based on the playback that you brought to the fore, the very first one, and I felt so elated, and to have listened, it is as crisp as a dollar bill, based on the four panelists you had on. The archives that you have kept here over that long period of time has done justice to you. Where did you get that idea from of having such an archive? Anyway, I'll move on.
It's part of our operation, number one. And number two, people keep asking us, sometimes, when we have anniversary, and we'll play some clips, people keep suggesting to us. And so, what I know about service, you give the people what the people, require, and so we've been getting quite a big bit of feedback. So what we proposing to do is every now and then we will drop one of those.
Well, like I've said, that particular one, did you have it flagged?
Which one that was?
That was the one with Kenneth, Mark, and Ted, including myself.
Go ahead.
Like I've said, it was so crisp, as if we did it yesterday. So, based on the management of the archives, I must have to congratulate the station, your staff, and yourself, more importantly, regarding the flagging or the maintenance of the archives to the extent where this was as crisp as a dollar bill.
It was, to me, very refreshing, because when you're involved in something, it's a difference to when you now sit back and you watch the whole thing put together. It's like you're playing a cricket game or something, and you're part of it, so you don't appreciate it in the same manner. So I was able to now listen and watch, because it's matter of fact, we have them on Facebook and YouTube and everything. So I was able to listen and watch, and it was refreshing again seeing Kenneth in action, Kenneth Williams. Hello, Kenneth, wherever you are. Or if you're not listening, somebody please tell Kenneth Williams that we said hello. And Ted, and the other thing I find is interesting in it, in them. Do you know some people believe they were current?
Quite so. Quite so. As I was at a particular location, popular location, I asked if they heard, and they said, yes, we heard. But when I recognized Kenneth involved, is Kenneth here? I said, no. That tape is maybe around 2012 or
20 years old.
20 years old. So, based on the crispness of that tape, I again congratulate you and your staff and the entire radio station with reference to keeping things current, even though they are a millennium years ago.
One of the other tapes that we played too, and it was refreshing as well, and to hear Alistair Yearwood. A lot of people didn't know that Alistair used to be a part of the program, made some solid contributions and all that, and so and a lot of young people listened as well and followed it. Some of the topics also were very, very riveting. I think we played one, and the topic was Nevis on the road to independence, and you were there with some passion, and which was interesting. Mr. Brantley, before he had his own program, and good old Ted, so it was rather interesting. And then of course we had a lot of people did not know. Some people did not know that Dr. Henry Brown, he had his political party, UNEP, and there is one that we will be playing in sometime when he and one of his candidates, who was Carlton DuPont. So it's interesting to listen back. But more importantly, in some of the topics and the issues, why people think that they're current is because not a whole lot has changed.
Because they're current.
Yeah, they're current. In fact, there is one that we have lined up to play as well, to replay as well, and it's entitled Electoral Reform, the Electoral Reform Committee. They had a committee in place for electoral reform, and every now and then you still hear people saying we want electoral reform, so it's interesting.
Quite so. And again, my congratulations go out to you and your staff and the radio station and the listening public who participated.
Mm-hmm.
Every year past, Webbo, I think your archive become more valuable. I think it's become part of the history of the island. I mean, a lot of people think that the history seems to have been put aside. Sometimes you say things that happened in the 70s and people want to know what. And so I think what you're doing is very important on behalf of Nevis. I know Sinkis have some kind of archive, which is a quite different one, but this one that you have here is one that actually endorses the political footsteps of many individuals.
There's one too also. Well, I think one we played involved Washington Ajibal, and there is one that we have lined up as well with him, and he was very forceful, and so it's there's one with Dr. Douglas in his early days, and I told someone I was talking to, we did a debate between Dr. Douglas, Dr. Simmons, who was the Prime Minister at the time, and Michael Powell, who had left PAM, or PAM threw him out, whichever way you want to style it, and he formed his own party. And so they, as the three leaders in the federal election, so we did a debate with them. And Dr. Douglas, those days, was so aggressive. Yeah.
Fiery.
I believe that he himself, if he were to see that tape, he'll just get a smile.
Look, I could have listened the flashback all night, but of course it was only 2 hours.
Yeah, but we got some more, and we appreciate the folks who appreciate the work that we do. And if you didn't get a chance to follow them, they are on our Facebook pages and YouTube pages. You can go there and find them and listen at your leisure. So again, we appreciate when people, appreciate the work that we do, because we do it with you in mind. Yeah,
just recently, or maybe it is today, the integrity aspect of our nation has been brought back to the fore, and I am wondering if these politicians know that it is a light being shone into the darkness, and to bring that darkness into light with reference to the integrity of holding public office. I mean, we had a little debate here or discussion on our aspect in Nevis, but I heard on the news the integrity of our national government is now brought into sharp focus, and I'm hoping that this, of course, will bring about the type of leadership that we do deserve, we yearn for, and in that regard, they can, in fact, put some pressure on, put more teeth into the Integrity Commission. If it has a double bridge at this juncture, let's put another bridge of teeth into it, so that we could hold our leaders, our elected leaders, accountable. I'm not sure if they are very happy with the fact that this has been brought to the fore in terms of integrity in public life. But it is crucial, it is critical, and it is apropos for integrity in public life to be brought to the fore, and for us to hold their feet to the fire. My son mentioned a particular name, but he didn't give me any details. But I heard it on the news today, coming from Vaughan Radio, about this particular individual. Anyhow, I am going to keep my ears to the ground to ascertain the true concept as to what occurred.
Great. Well, the law, I suppose, it's in place now for a bit, yeah, and I guess as time goes forward, we're going to see some tightening up of things. But importantly is the Department of Public Prosecution willingness and seemingly eagerness to bring those individuals who have breached the law, the integrity in public life law, to justice. I think that is very important. To me, that's a new thing here in the Federation, and probably it's something we want to see right across the region, even more, because the law now exists, and so anyone found in breach of that law, we look towards the public prosecution to really bring them to court, and for them to actually come clear as it relates to their activity and their breaching of the law. I mean, all around the world, you hear what's going on in Israel. The Prime Minister, he himself has his time in court. We see what's happening in the US. But we never used to see these things happening. And I suppose maybe because the law was not in place. But too many times we see elected officials at times acting in such a manner. But I guess the integrity in public life legislation is quite intrusive into your personal assets and dealings and acquaintances and so forth. And I am so happy that I think I read in the newspaper this weekend that the Department of Public Prosecution stands ready and eager to really evoke the law and bring those individuals who find themselves in breach of the legislation to justice. That is what's important.
I've done this thing for a while. We can point to any given time where a public prosecutor or anyone with such a responsibility, a commissioner of police or police officer, did not echo the same sentiments that you just echoed?
You know, I never heard it, Webbo.
You never heard?
I never heard anybody from such department throughout my life decide to pull elected representatives under the clock or to justice in breach of, well, I don't know if there was any legislation that exists.
Right. That's why if you listen to how the question was put, the question was, have you ever heard any person who had the responsibility to enforce any law or any rule say something different or contrary to that what is being said now? Okay, let me put it another way. You never heard the commissioner of police, all of them from the time of independence, swear in press statements and etc., they were going to do similar. And I'm talking about not just a particular segment where it is to do with a politician or what, but I'm talking about enforcing a particular rule or law for the betterment of the society. Have you heard any of them say anything different?
No.
Okay.
No, I have not, Webbo.
I've been around this joint for a while. And when we were speaking just now about the playbacks, which some of them were 20 years, and I think Edric and I had agreed that they are very apt in reference to currently. And I think he or I went as far as saying that nothing has really changed. And I think I pointed out the example with the electoral thing. So when we play back that one, the younger folks are going to find that the current callers who call into the talk shows and talk about we need electoral reform and stuff like that and so on, we had that debate and that furious thing 20 years ago. And constitutional reform as well. And we had some which discussed Nevis's secession or independence, and we have some more to and it's very important to listen. So now you get the point?
Yes, I get the point, sir.
I listen to government in action. Well, not government in action, but information coming from the federal government. I am not fully remembered the name of the program, but it is the federal government with the Justice Minister of Justice, Garth Wilkin, who has employed a prosecutor, for the want of a better word, a DPP from Antigua, And based on the fact that he is here in the nation now, he's been employed by our legal department at the federal level as the lead DPP. But based on what I heard, we are so far behind in terms of bringing our laws up to speed. And when we actually realized that we or he can be of great help, he decided to leave Antigua and to join our legal team here in St. Kitts and Nevis, because he has in his arsenal many ideas to reform our criminal justice system. And it was rather interesting to listen and to understand the lack of level to which our prosecution should arrive at. And as a result, he is aboard our legal team, Garth Wilkin as the Minister of Justice. But the ideas that I listened to, can't remember them, but at the same time, it made a lot of sense to bring our legal system up to speed. Webbo, you might have, I do not know if you tape that segment in particular, but it would be quite heavy. See, a term we used to use in my other jurisdiction. To find it, if you have it, and replay that for the good enhancement of our community with reference to law enforcement and the duties of the DPP, a new DPP we have that was brought out of Antigua. He was a DPP in Antigua and he left Antigua to join us simply because he probably realizes that there's a vacuum here, and to bring our legal system up to par or up to speed, he is with us. Can't think of his name, but it would be, in fact, good if you could find, if you have it in your archives, to play it again. Webbo.
Well, I suppose if anyone who was working in that department in Antigua and come over to join our department, his expertise, I suppose, are badly needed on one front. Two, he must be very much well taken care of financially from this end. But any improvement in our justice system is definitely welcome, and a more robust DPP is what I'm hoping for. I know you said, Webbo, that we over the years been hearing the same thing, but to me, I see this government in St. Kitts, the new Labour government under Prime Minister Drew. I think he has that extra zest to really improve on the integrity of government, and what he expects of his government and the people who he's working with. I think they really wants to have more transparency. I also think that Drew is doing a very good job in bringing the Federation together. I think he has quite a sympathetic approach to the Nevis situation. I am looking forward to see a lot more happening on island when I listen to him, and he's reached out to the island administration to be more cooperative with them. But I think anything that can improve our justice system is very much welcome, and to effectuate the Integrity in Public Life bill, I think that in itself, to me, is very much needed. And from what I've been reading, it seems like they're already being seen some failures some failures in elected representatives to really meet that threshold, and they seems very eager. So I'm kind of excited about that, because that can only lead to a better governance. And I've heard that word used over and over again by Prime Minister Jew. In the light of all this, still, I would expect to see a robust acceleration in economic activity in Nevis. I don't want to just hear talk coming from the federal government. I want to see that they are looking at the federation as one, and I want to see that the involvement more with the island administration, we can see a lot more progress over here in Nevis. It's early in the new year, and things seems very slow moving at this point in time. But I do hope, from what he has expressed, that we can actually feel it here in Nevis, that we are making good progress. Good progress in relationship, that's one aspect of it. Good progress in our economic vibrancy is even more important to us over here.
Prime Minister Drew seems to be a fair-minded leader, and he intends to look after the entire nation based on his utterances, based on the approach he has demonstrated so far. We, the residents of Nevis, I think, can look forward to his assistance, simply because he is concerned of the treatment we have been getting over the past many years, and it's only fair, right, and proper for a person on the outside seeing the shortcomings of those who are on the inside in terms of elected leaders, and could say categorically, I wouldn't do what former, whether Prime Minister, as the case might be, would do in this particular situation. But I'm going to put my mark on being fair to all the citizens, regardless of party affiliation, regardless to the whole 9 yards. But he has clearly set out, seemingly as an outsider, having seen how the two islands have been run, to take a different approach, and as a result, we in Nevis can give him his check mark as a good leader so far. Of course, he has maybe the next 4 years to continue on the path of being fair to all the citizens of our country.
So, prior to him, your evaluation would have been that the others had failed.
I wouldn't use such a heavy term, but they didn't.
Work with me. What term would you use?
They didn't reach the bar to which they have stated, simply because of personal interest.
So the prior leaders, Dr. Harris, did not reach the bar.
No.
Dr. Douglas did not reach the bar.
No.
Dr. Simmons did not reach the bar.
No.
So prior to Dr. Drew, you did not feel that as far as Nevis was concerned, it was getting a fair shake.
Quite so.
And you said it?
Well,
or you are now saying it?
No, I've said it in the past.
Really?
Well, Webbo, you might have the tapes, all the tapes on which I've been present, and as a consequence, you might not have the evidence of my stating categorically what I've just stated. But
you know why I mightn't have it?
I'm listening.
No, I ask you if you know why I mightn't have it.
I don't want to go into a position of self-conviction.
Okay. You and I have been you and I have been together for a while, and I know you need a break.
Okay, well, thank you for the break.
This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Niall, Liveword. Your phone calls a little later on when we come back on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. We'll be back after these.
A 5-acre lot of land with 219 feet of ocean frontage is up for sale. It is located east of the Medical University at Pasture Gate, Brick Hill. For serious inquiries, call Mr. Edric Stanley at Stanley's Real Estate at 665-5634 or 469-3868.
You're listening to Vaughn Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis.
Hendrik, you got the break and I got one as well. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. You can call now. You know, I was speaking to someone today, and there is an interesting point or concern that they have. And I think that we had that discussion here before, whereby the solid waste fees, the person was indicating that the solid waste do not pick up the garbage from businesses, yet they are tagged with a $75 fee, and they have to organize the disposal themselves, take it to solid waste, and then pay.
Double whammy.
Right. So, you know, to tell the truth, if what they're saying is correct, I didn't know that happened in terms of the $75 fee, but they do not collect the garbage from the businesses. And their concern or query was, well, why do we pay that $75? My answer was, when I thought about it, maybe that is just one of those things that you just spread it across the population, and you know, some might benefit more than others, or some might benefit and some no. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the solid waste fees are attached to the meter, and we pay that solid waste fee to the water
The water,
department.
yeah.
At the same time, I don't have at my commercial entity, I advise my tenants not to put out garbage because the donkeys pull down whatever the receptacle is, and the garbage become strewn all over the area and makes it unsightly. At the same time, we have to pay that $75 fee simply because my area at the front is categorized as a commercial department, commercial entity. However, I am so glad that they got a new billing system from the water department, because based on the format that is now coming out, I recognize that $107 is attached to a meter. In the consumption column, they got zero. In the amount column, they got $107.50. And that meter has been on since no water has been coming through that meter since 2013. So I was able to get a good glance, good look, simply because of this particular meter. We don't use it, but just kept the meter just in case I would need it. But in the consumption column, again, zero. Days of consumption, zero. But yet $107. I know I have to pay maybe something for the meter. But if I didn't consume any water through that meter, why should I be billed at $107?
And you took it up with the water department? And they said what?
No, I haven't taken it.
Oh, you haven't taken it, okay.
But I was able to look at it very critically. So, again, maybe the charge of solid waste can fall in the same category.
But how many years you say you didn't use the meter? Since 2013?
Right. The meter is still...
Yeah, but this is 2024.
Right.
And that's what...
So it's very likely that I've been paying that kind of...
That's 11 years.
Yeah, for not consuming any water through that particular meter.
And you get a bill of $107.
Yes.
That's okay.
Well, you pay a minimum charge per month.
Well, it should.
Yeah, work with me. And if you were not consuming any and you were not paying, it seems to me if you multiply that minimum by the number of years, you might get somewhere around there. That is why I ask you if you went to the water department, because they might be able to explain it for you.
Well, I haven't one yet.
But that's what I'm saying. But just listening, your side only, there seems to be an explanation which you can't have, because if you were not billed, and if you said you were running for 10 years, and
I get a bill every month.
You were getting a bill which said what?
But I never...
Walk with me. You were getting a bill which said how much?
You
don't know.
I don't remember. I don't remember. But I'm certain.
That is why they call you a super heavyweight.
I'm certain, based on logic, the consumption is zero. Days of consumption, zero. I know I was paying something to keep the meter on, to keep the meter at my place.
But after 11 years, that must be minimal.
For $107.50.
After 11 years.
Yeah, the problem I have, you see, why there are certain things I don't. prolong at a certain point is because sometimes people are fair enough to adequately give the two sides of the information, and then you can make a judgment from it. It's awfully difficult, though, to get one side of the information, especially when a person's intent is to make sure that the person who is listening make an assessment on their behalf. So that is why I don't like to make conclusions on information that have one side.
Well, based on the other meters, because we have 3 meters at that location, based on the other meters, none of them, it is not correct mathematically. So something is amiss.
Yeah, but you see, when I
hear you.
Now, this is 2024, and still people just don't want me to talk. Anyway, on to what else we got?
No, I understood that the government intends to get bids regarding that vast area going north of the Long Point Pier through to Hanley's Road, with the intent, again let me repeat, with the intent to put in the road. It might take another 10 years, another 20 years, another 35 years, but at the same time, it's not a bad pronouncement or announcement by the Department of Communication and Works. And I'm only sorry that the Honorable Spencer Brandy is not on the program tonight to ask him pointedly if this is truly the information that I have heard. So, based on that, if that is the case, that's an area that the government can look forward to for a mammoth amount in terms of revenue, for putting in the roads, putting in the road from Long Point Pier going toward Hanley's Road, connecting it to Hanley's Road, and then all that real estate would be brought to the fore, and the government can collect a lot of revenue in that area, or from that area, from the property owners, simply because access road would have been put in. Now, that area is critically important in my view for the real estate industry. Again, revenue or taxes because of the enhancement of access road in that area.
Mr. Stanley, how ready are we for that, really, given the circumstances that we're dealing with currently in terms of our financial ableness and so on? Yeah, I mean, you've said probably it's going to happen in the next 10, 15 or 35 years.
Because I have experience in terms of my going in that same area, because my cousin had a vast amount of land in that area, and when I went there, I realized I couldn't buy, simply because of the erosion that took place or that was taking place, and I didn't see value for money, so I went and bought a piece in another area where no erosion has occurred at all. But at the same time, because of the erosion that had taken place, and that piece I bought over 35 years now. This is why I brought in the information about maybe things not going to happen in 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, 20, 30, up to 35 years. So that's the timetable on my calendar, because I have no idea how fast government would move with reference to putting in the infrastructure, but particularly road in that area.
I mean, it's a great idea, but sometimes when I look at Nevis in general and see where we're at, I see such projects can be, I mean, somebody like you who is in that field of business, you might be more itchy than other people to make it happen, to see it happen, because there's a lot of money to be made, I suppose. But when you look at Nevis in a general sense, I believe maybe we have so much things to do. Yes, I find we have so much things to do, which is very calling upon us and our financial capability at this point in time, that I feel like it's not quite a fantasy, but that project might take a long time to do. You know, as you mentioned, erosion. What are we doing about that here in Nevis? I realize in many countries we are using the stones from the hills, rolling them into the sea and reclaiming land all the time and actually doing serious investment. I see it happening in St. Kitts a lot, you know, and I'm wondering why we're not thinking about that, because it looks like, Mr. Stanley, that are we lacking like creative thinking over here in terms of what to do with this island to achieve what we want going forward? Did you find that's kind of lacking?
Well, nothing happens before its time, and as a result, the government has to look at its expenditure and look again at its revenue. And when you make the comparison, you're able to make a determination as to priority.
Prioritize, yes.
For funding. But they can't go wrong putting in the roads, because property in that area, land in that area, once the roads are in, the value would go up, and as a result, the government would send its people from Inland Revenue to do the calculations and to bring those lands in the area up to speed in terms of the taxation for that area. And it is quite a lot. It's a vast area. And the government can't lose. If they got to go to Development Bank, you can't lose. Go and borrow the money, put in the infrastructure, and then you put on the taxes, put your appraisers, valuators to bring the appropriate amount in terms of tax on that vast area of unproductive land.
So do you think they're going to be a situation where we have to stop the erosion in that area, which is happening pretty fast?
Well, what I'm saying to you, if the government were to put in the mechanism to reduce the rate of erosion, you just share the cost in terms of landowners in the area. You're now protected. It costs us X number of dollars, and math is not a rocket science. So if the government has in fact expended X number of dollars, they amortize it over a period of time, but the amount would be shared among the many landowners in that area.
You know, Edric, a couple of weeks ago, I made a suggestion which you oppose fiercely, and I couldn't understand why. But based on my experiences in life and the knowledge that I have acquired, I now understand why you oppose me so fiercely. The suggestion I made was that I feel that at this juncture, were you to run, you would win.
Well,
and you no, I don't know why nobody wants.
no, I, that's an exclamation mark. You can put it there. Not to for my to say anything.
Okay, so and so you oppose me fiercely, and now listening to you, I now understand why.
Well, what I gave you the parameters. This is the time to elect young people,
Yeah, right.
good-looking people. Even though knowledge is there.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I just listening to you, I got an example of why you persuaded me so fiercely.
Well, I have to, because I have to face reality.
Oh, okay. and right now, the fact that you're not in there, you don't have to talk reality. I got you. I got you.
Okay, well.
Yeah. So, sorry to interrupt.
Look, I came back to the country or island where I was born to make a contribution, not a sacrifice. But the integrity bill that is passed by the Nevis Island administration and the current one that is at the federal level reduces the chance of people doing the things that are not conducive, not apropos, but would curtail their advancement in terms of riches. In order to be honest, the government has to impose this integrity in public life. Barring that, there are shenanigans would be, or alleged shenanigans would be perpetrated by some holding these public offices, public positions.
It doesn't stop them from getting rich.
Huh?
It doesn't stop them from getting rich.
You don't think so?
No.
Man, I could tell you. People.
Let me get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Webbo.
Yes. Good evening.
I have a little question for Mr. Stanley. Concerning those same lands over on the southern side of Nevis. Based on your expertise, your real estate expertise and your experience, what would you say would be the best use of those lands over there in terms of development? And you said most of the land over there are owned by private people, are privately owned. So how is that going to, who's going to be responsible for developing the area if the lands are privately owned? How is that going to be done? I would like to get your take on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We as a race, we as a people, we are creative, and I could tell you, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to operate in that area in terms of having vision. So, based on what I'm seeing, a lot of things can happen over there with reference to businesses. Just put in the access road, and wherever you are, do you know a lady, a foreigner, has a restaurant in the mountain, on the mountain, and you'll be surprised to know how much business she does there. Which means, once you put in the access road or the infrastructure, people are going to be creative enough to open businesses in that area, from the Long Point Port toward Hanley's Road, along the main thoroughfare. It has nothing to do with government in the true sense of the word, in terms of after the infrastructure or road has been put in. People will find a way to commercialize that area. As a result, the area would be developed to the extent where businesses can be placed over there. I hope I answered the caller's question. We're not a people who sleep on our brain. The 3% of the population of Nevis, those of us who know where we are going and how to get there, will become creative to the extent where things will happen. Money will be made. Access will be given to the people. Areas, parks, a little piece or a park here and there, as the case might be. But the bulk of that vast domain would be creatively developed. I mentioned I had a dream in terms of large structures were constructed in that same area, from port going southward and eastward to Hanley's Road.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. I would like to challenge Mr. Stanley about just leaving it to business people to develop that virgin territory. I honestly feel that an overall plan would serve the island better, and that plan would include a combination of, or should be devised by a combination of public and private sector interests. right? I don't think you should just leave it to business people, because for one, what may result is just rampant speculation, which would not serve, I think, the purposes of Nivision. Right? I really feel that some really serious planning need to be put on to happen for that area to develop properly. And with regards to a comment, I heard a comment just made that the integrity in public life stuff cannot prevent politicians from getting rich. I'm not so sure it's about them getting rich. People can get rich by honest means. And what we want is that they don't get rich off the public purse and by dishonest means, like money on the table and that sort of thing. And that, I think, is where integrity comes in. You probably can't cut out corruption totally, but you certainly can curtail it. And that is what I think the integrity in public life stuff is designed to do. Okay,
Caller.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, do you get the feeling that, generally speaking, when we reference the integrity in public life, people get the notion that it refers only to elected officials?
Right now, yes. I don't think it has sunk in yet that it applies generally to, well, first of all, to senior civil servants, because generally it has not been applied to them. People.
Okay. Should we? Do you think we should do a better job in, explaining and us understanding, and that against the backdrop that I've heard it been said that a lot of the times the so-called corruption is not limited to, or sometimes it is not with the politicians but with others in the public service?
Well, that may be true, but that has more to do with the systems in the public service. I think, generally speaking, right, this idea that a fish stinks from the top usually applies here, right? If the leaders set a tone that does not tolerate corruption or malfeasance or whatever you want to call it, it will filter down throughout the service and maybe even the society as a whole. You run a tight ship and a ethical and integrous government administration. It will filter down, okay? But what the public observes is that politicians seem to get rich because of the contacts or access to resources or whatever. I mean, and very often it's in your face, okay? At least with the integrity legislation, you got to explain it. And that might give reason for pause to some who may be tempted.
Having made that point, what you just made, do you think and consequently it will discourage some from entering into that field?
Well, if it does, it's probably because it's keeping out the right people. Okay? If you go into public service because you want to be a public servant, you want to help people, the usual mouthings of politicians. If you are genuine, if you're sincere, then it wouldn't stop you. I don't think it would stop you. If you've made your money already from whatever sources before you enter politics.
Yeah, but my question was more practical than philosophical, though. Meaning that
more practical.
Yeah, meaning that you know or we know our people, right? And from a philosophical standpoint, we can make a probable supposition. But knowing our people, if you think that they don't have that leverage which they have now, right? Do you think they will be encouraged to go there, go in?
So I suspect that some will still be encouraged to go in, right? I honestly feel so. I don't think everybody, when you say knowing our people, that suggests that you don't have faith in our people.
Right, because the truth is that what we do, we vilify all of them. And that is who we think they are, not correct?
We vilify all of them,
yes.
Because if we see a good number of them, not just one or two, not a sprinkling, all of them seem to do the same things, won't go in.
Okay.
But others would.
All right.
You know, there are some good people out there still, I think.
I see. Yeah. I got you.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley, same question to you.
Look, I made statements in the past, and the buck stops with the leader or deputy leader, those people in the office of elected leadership.
Here's the thing, though. Contrary to what the caller is suggesting, contrary to what you are suggesting, contrary to what Naya suggests as well, both leaders in the Federation have recently, and I'm subject to be corrected, have recently made comments that they are confident that none of these accusations fairly apply to they and their cabinet or government. How do you respond to that?
Well, we are human beings and we live in this society and we hear things, and sometimes we see it demonstrated. Now, based on what we know in the last election, it's alleged that a lot of money was given out. Let me again say it's alleged that a lot of money had been given out.
You ever heard an allegation about you which was, as Edric would say, 100% incorrect or hogwash?
Sure.
Okay.
And I hear it all the time.
Okay.
So, but I have the evidence to refute it. You brought me into the conversation. You know how many things people say about me?
Right. So the reason why I asked you that is for you to consider that while you're speaking about the allegations or what was alleged in reference to others.
Well, what I'm saying to you is that it's been alleged that a lot of money had been given out during this last election.
Right. And that's why I brought up
so if
other allegations to you.
If we are able
to make the point that you would agree that some allegations, as in your case, can be hogwash as well.
Quite so.
Okay.
Quite so. But let us bring certain cases in point. the bouncing of the Nevis Island administration check by Sir Kennedy Simmons, they knew that we needed the money over here to pay civil servants. So why allowing the check to bounce? But that is documented, you know. There is enough blame to go around. There is enough blame to go around. But I'm saying to you, sometimes you have to use the word alleged without going the extra mile by accusation, because it could be quite litigious if you're not accurate in your statement, because you could be hauled under the clock or hauled into court to prove that you made the allegation, and based in a court of law, if you can't prove yourself, prove the allegation, you are up a gum tree. But we know exactly what happens, and sometimes we don't know what happens. But at the same time, we are living in a society and we consume information, and based on the consumption of information, we can conclude at a certain point in time that there weren't allegations anymore. They were in fact facts proven in a court of law.
Well, Webbo, you know, I must agree with the caller that I think a better job must be done to make the public more aware of the scope of the integrity in public life, because I think the public has a very important role to play in it too. Yes, it's noted that it's not just elected officials, because I can see a lot of things happening beneath them by people who work in the department, sometimes managers of, and maybe permanent secretaries. And I think the public does have a role to play in highlighting some of the things that they see, and they continue to see display around them, because sometimes it's very much in the public face, and as if the public, of course, it seems we sometimes feel very hopeless in terms of what we can do, but I guess we can inform the correct people to look into certain things that we see taking place. Yes, the integrity bill doesn't prevent a politician from getting rich, because a politician can find himself involved in business which is legal, which is rightful, given his position in government. But I think, especially a little island like Nevis, and I constantly saying to myself, this place seems to constantly being raped by ourselves, our own people seems to be, because some things that I see taking place in here in Nevis, I wonder if and this thing about the leader of Sinkis and the leader of Nevis said that no member of his cabinet can be accused in such ways. It's really not correct in a sense, I think we casually say sometimes that all politicians are the same. They are not really the same, but I think we tend to just casually categorize them as the same, but amongst the good ones you find the bad ones, and there tends to stay in the whole lot of them, so the integrity in public life, I think a better job can be done, because people hear the term all the time, but people don't know the extent of the scope of the allegation. People don't know who are included in it, and so maybe that's why we just give politicians the blame when we see things happening.
Well, to be honest, we know as human beings, we are fallible, and based on the system of government of the West, the free enterprise system, people like to know that they make a lot of money, get a lot of money, however they get it. As a result, some people do. Some people work hard and they save, and ultimately they took chances regarding investments. Some pan out well, some eventually bust, plunder. But if the stroke of luck hits you, it's very likely that you could operate honestly and make a living and get rich. But that's not what we are saying about the integrity bill. The integrity bill is to ensure that we do the math, and if you wound up with a certain amount of assets beyond the run-of-the-mill, when you do the calculations and the numbers are not correct, and you do the investigation, and the investigation finds someone with their hand in the cookie jar, then this is where the integrity in public life comes in, and you use whatever the penalty, punitive
action that the law prescribes, and they are held accountable. They must answer for the actions. So do you think people enter politics with that intention in mind?
Sure.
To scrape off their...
Quite so.
Or they become like that when they find themselves in place and see things passing by which they think they can pinch off.
We are human beings. Should I reiterate? We are human beings. We are fallible. And we make mistakes. And only at a certain juncture we would label it as a mistake. Let us assume a fellow is making, say, 100,000 a year, and within a short period of time he winds up with millions. I go to the bank, and if I sell a piece of land, I got to state to the bank where that money is coming from, and I would give them the documentation. Now, if for some reason somebody sees a couple of cents in my account, they want to know how that money arrived in my account, then you go to the bank, and the bank should be able to give you the evidence. That is integrity. Not in public life, but in the private sector.
What about those politicians who doesn't seem to like they want to do anything at all except being in government? I find there's quite a few around. Would you think that those individuals have that in mind, that when they go in office they become wealthy, because I realize there are a few politicians who doesn't do anything at all. Once the government is out, they're just waiting to get back in. And it makes me wonder if those are the type that's going to be grabbed by the clause of the integrity in public life.
Look, you can take chances. Life is a gamble. And if you play your numbers right, you will win. You can win. But you play them wrong and you lose, and then all of a sudden you realize that life is passing you by. Couple of dollars, you grab it. I want to make this point. I ran not with the expectation of losing, but if I do the math, like Webbo is attempting to tell me, I could win. I know that the numbers are against me. Numbers are against me, and therefore I know I can't win. So there's no need for me to even go forward at this juncture, because there are a lot of expectations. People looking for young people. People looking for good-looking people, like the Honorable Mark Brantley, the Honorable the late Vance Amory. Those are good-looking people. They were young people who were in their earlier days when they first got elected.
What about the others?
Hmm?
I wanted to ask you, Mr. Stanley, do you think in the last 20 years that the island has been a victim of unscrupulous politicians getting rich from their position in office and doing what the Integrity in Public Life bill doesn't want them to do?
Why do you think
over the last 20 years?
Why
do you think Nevis has been
why do you think that they brought up the Integrity Bill? They brought it into force.
As a watchdog.
Simply because we live here.
So you're saying yes? The answer is yes to that question?
I never answer that question, because I don't want anybody to accuse me for mouthing off about anybody at the same time.
No, I'm not asking you to call names at all.
No, I'm saying to you, well, not only the people who weren't elected, but they're there and they are getting rich by whatever means. All right? It's not so easy to get rich. It takes proper planning, proper engineering. I'm talking about financial engineering. And you have to know what to buy, how to buy it, when to sell it. Sometimes you make errors in your judgment and decision. But at the same time, if you plan carefully, like my son would tell me, Daddy, you've been here I haven't seen anything recently that you did. I said, nothing happens before its time. And they don't like to hear me say that. Nothing happens before its time. I got plans. Doesn't mean that my plans would come to fruition. But if the timing is right, those plans would come to fruition.
But I must agree with you, going back to the land in the south side of Nevis, though, I must agree with you when you state that once the road is built, we're going to see activities in that area. But the question of priority is my concern.
Well, you see, you're looking at the expenditure side of it.
I must be.
You're not looking at the revenue side of it. What I'm saying is that we, as a society, and the Nevis Island administration must look as to where there is potential for revenue. And I'm saying to them, they can go to CDB, borrow the money, put in the roads, and the money, it will come back. It will come back.
But what about other areas, possibly in tourism? Get money and put money into tourism, and so we can have...
The tourism money has been already earmarked for certain things in terms of paying salaries, paying government services. But this is an untapped area. The area for government revenue currently is there. They do collect property tax on existing properties in the different areas of Nevis, St. Kitts, as the case might be. But all of a sudden, we know the Citizen by Investment CBI program. That's an area that was brought to the fore by Sir Kennedy Simmons, as the case might be, or whomever. But that has now become part of the revenue apparatus or collection by selling passports, selling citizenship.
Yes, we know that.
But that money is already earmarked for expenditure for the civil service of St. Kitts Nevis. No.
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm saying, don't you think putting more money into tourism would increase the revenue we get from tourism, and that is something maybe more reachable in a shorter period than...
Listen, that's why you got diversified economy. Diversification of the economy.
In what areas?
You just mentioned about putting more money into tourism, but over here, going north, southward to Hanley's Road, that vast domain of vegetation is an untapped source of additional revenue for the Nevis Island administration, and therefore they can find a source from which to borrow the money. I identified CDB. There are other areas, the banks.
How do you see financial fluency with the administration, the island administration here? How do you see it? It's a good question to me, because sometimes it looks like things are tight, like there's no money around.
Enough money is not coming in.
Enough money is not coming in.
Because let me tell you, we have an appetite. We want good roads, we want good water, we want good schools, we want good hospitals. So many areas by which or through which the money could be expended. And therefore, no matter what you throw at it, it's going to take it in terms of expenditure. Dr. Drew mentioned about an upscale health program, healthcare facility. now they are attempting to put into place, based on what I'm hearing, insurance, health insurance for government workers. Right? All these areas are areas that would take every dime as an administration. They will take every dime because we are not as a first-class society yet. The expansion or the massive growth of vehicles on this island tells you how much money has been expended into the vehicle expansion on Nevis. Of course, it's private entity. But this tells you within a short period of time, the mammoth growth that occurs in the transportation area. Everybody
Have a car.
wants a car. I went to a funeral just the other day and a lady asked me for a ride, but she said every home got in 3, 4, 5 cars because everybody wants a car. But I just brought that the automobile as an entity in our society which has ballooned with reference to growth over a short period of time. But as a nation with 2 administrations, whatever you prioritize must be funded.
Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nair Library. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. We'll be back after these.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Always satisfying. Vaughn Radio, the powerhouse.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nair Library. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. What do you make of the policy being put in place by the federal government to basically make the young population, younger segment of the population from 5 to 18 or something like that, to start them off with $1,000 and $500 each, of which will comprise of shares in a company or something like that. And the objective is to get our people financially literate, so to speak. What do you think? What do you make of it?
It's a brilliant idea, but it doesn't mean that everybody would operate the way the plan is designed. Because there are times if you don't get up off your fanny and produce, the money you received would be utilized for your own upkeep, but not realizing that there's an obligation for you to keep the account which has been put in place for you going.
You think that that account should have some caveats or some strings attached?
You should make strings attached to it, because I could tell you There are people who are destined to be poor, destined to be lazy,
So
destined.
when they get the money, you mean they might just spend it. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening again. We've heard that, well, certainly for the budget, I think, was it last year, that 60% of the revenues, the CBI accounted for 60% of the revenues. Is that actually sustainable? And doesn't that give a false sense of security that we can pay our way going forward? Is it that the CBI is now essentially an industry, that there is certain of money coming in, and therefore can make those same priorities that you talk about, that we can at least afford them? I would argue that we should probably be looking at more solid investments, both public and private sector and foreign, that would be income generating and give people the capacity to earn a living for themselves rather than being dependent on government handouts and the dole, so to speak, right? Because I don't think there's anything more dignified than having a well-paying job and being able to fend for yourself as opposed to be going elsewhere. And I don't think we're at that point as yet, right? And one other statistic that is concerning is the fact that 38% of the workforce is employed by government. That came from I think it was the World Bank figures. That is concerning. We're the highest in the OECD, right? And that in itself is concerning. And do we actually see any attempt by government to reduce that, not just curtailing it just like that and retrenching workers, but by bringing in more opportunities, more investment, so that people could go elsewhere, could go to seek jobs elsewhere. I think I'm not sure that we're paying, if we're talking about priorities and sustainable island state, that we're looking at things like that to make sure that we get that kind of sustainability. I don't know what your views are on that.
Caller, with reference to the CBI, right? I think maybe sometimes we need a good debate on certain topics, because we keep hearing that in a negative way, that the CBI contribution is far too great a percentage in reference to the income and hence the budget.
Right.
And that rhetoric you mostly hear from the opposition side. And then work with me. And then when the opposition becomes the government, they take up this script that the then government used to have. So it is more a game playing.
You think so?
It is.
Well,
just my assessment.
You don't think? It's quite possible.
And let me. So I'm giving you my rationale. Because what is wrong with the CBI monies being 64% or whatever percentage it is of the budget contribution, as opposed to tourism? What if tourism was 64%? Didn't we have COVID and then went into a panic where tourism is concerned, and start to say, well, we have to go to agriculture, we have to diversify, etc., etc. So we must face the reality as what it is.
Well, the thing is, though, and yes, I agree with you, because at some point we used to say that tourism was a fickle industry.
Exactly.
But yet we have countries like Bermuda and Bahamas that have for decades have been thriving off of it. Okay? And there will always be conflict in the world, so you can argue that there always will be people looking for second citizenship. Okay? But the thing is, I think the thing about the CBI is that there's a particular vulnerability to it, in that it's almost as if foreign countries can just pull the rug from under us at any point, right? I think that is the difference.
No, but with the more things are different, the more it's the same, because the foreign countries have done the same thing with us in reference to tourism. When they don't like what we do with certain things, or if certain things happen, they put out an advisory. You remember when we had to put out ads and all sort of thing to combat certain things, to get people to come back and make sure. So you see, that is why, I don't just like noise. That's why I use the term, I want to have a good debate, because that is when the facts come in.
I understand what you're saying, but I guess people make the distinction of, let's say, for instance, a company coming here, a call center coming here, an electronic factory coming here, that actually make things, that actually produce a service, as opposed to selling that, what shall we call it, that thing in the sky called a passport. There's a solidness to the traditional ways of earning foreign exchange.
Yeah, but that's exactly the point that I'm making, caller, right? And I'm saying, because the case is not being made, and the people who are in opposition at the given time, right, they make a lot of noise and they're not being challenged. And that is why, are you following me?
Well, yeah, except that you realize that the EU and North America are in fact hostile to those programs.
Yeah, but
okay?
Yeah, right,
They don't want to offend WTO rules and those kinds of things. But they have other very subtle ways of making their displeasure known and giving us a hard time, like changing the goalposts all the time. So that's an environment that we can't control.
But the truth is, Carter, the truth is that it doesn't matter what we are doing. They can find cause to change and move goalposts accordingly. Because with direct foreign investment and so on, hasn't that basically dried up?
Direct foreign investment?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't
okay. You're right. Okay. You don't agree with that. Tell me where it is coming from, because if my memory serves me correct, a caller with a similar voice pointed out that a lot of the investments we have in the big investments in St. Kitts with hotels and stuff like that is some of our same monies used by people who come in, not correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So that's my answer to you.
No, but at the same time, right, I don't think we're aggressively pursuing the opposite. For instance,
we may not be aggressively pursuing it, but the point is that it is not happening. You agree with that?
Right, it's not happening. And
so the reason is not the issue. The issue is that it is not happening.
If it is something desirable, that we should be able to diversify our economy and those sorts of things, then if it's not happening, we should make it happen. And I might be oversimplifying it, but let's look at Taiwan's contribution to the Federation. For 40 plus years, they've been putting emphasis on agriculture, helping us in the agricultural area. Don't you think we should have pivoted a long time ago to something like manufacturing, which the Taiwanese are good at, and we're right under the belly of North America? You want to tell me that they couldn't bring some plant here and take advantage of our closeness and whatever? I don't know if there's a Caribbean Basin Initiative now, or whatever concessions we might have for exporting to the U.S. right now. But you don't think they could have done that, pivoted to that? But I don't think we actually requested something like that, or actually were driven to do that. We didn't. I don't think we looked at it in those terms. You know, and every government, I agree with you that they take a position depending on whether they're in government or opposition in terms of the CBI. But all of them, I think, are in agreement that we need to diversify. Right? I don't think there's any question about that. The question is how. You know, and I'm saying that I don't think we were aggressive enough in making sure that happened, because we did have a pretty good ratio in terms of agriculture, manufacturing, tourism. You know, that there was a good mix, but we sat there and let a lot of our factories close, you know, trying to get replacement, right? And that, I think, was a travesty, you know.
All right. All right, thank you.
Okay.
The CBI program was designed to help our area. The raw materials would be gotten from North America. We turn it into products, and we send it back to North America with certain tax advantages or custom duties not leveled on these finished products. So, based on the CBI program at the time, we need to, in fact, identify other areas of making or manufacturing products, and to send them on to, well, primarily US or Canada, with certain custom duties not leveled on the products manufactured here, but going into those markets for consumption.
But I think South America has beat us to that in a big way.
Well, the cost of shipping the raw material here is more than shipping it to Mexico, as the case might be.
Maybe labor costs too is higher here.
Well, we have to watch our economy, because we could price ourselves out of the market.
Remember the recent rate in minimum wage. We are pricing ourselves out of the market.
We got to be very careful.
Let me tell you that straight up.
This is Talk That Get Results. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. And then on Thursday night at 8 o'clock, Keats Cargill with Government at Work. A good way to spend your evenings is right here at the Eastern Caribbean Spa House. Thank you all for joining us. Your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on the receiving program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertiser.